Because my parents are coming over, you need to go back to your parents' house. When I got back from shopping, my husband Christopher said something outrageous with a mean smile on his face. Complaining about me wasn't something new, but I was genuinely taken aback by this sudden declaration to leave. Wait a minute, why are you bringing this up all of a sudden? Christopher ignored my words. He's always been like this when things get troublesome. He just keeps ignoring. I might have brushed off his usual complaints as nothing new, but being told to leave without even a reason, I couldn't just accept it. And his parents are coming over. I couldn't just ignore these words. If you don't explain properly, I won't understand what you mean. Glancing at me briefly with a look as if I'm a nuisance, he finally spoke. Mom wants to live here. That means you're in the way. Mom says she hates you. Here we go again, Mom. Even when discussing important matters, he brings up his mother. I was so tired of it. I felt like something inside me had crumbled with a noise. I understand, but don't regret this later. I, who contribute $160 every month to our living expenses, gave him a meaningful smile and turned my back on him. My name is Jennifer, and I'm 39 years old. On the surface, I'm a housewife. Our family consists of my husband Christopher, who is 2 years younger than me, our son Stephen, who is in the 11th grade, and our daughter Betty, who is in the 7th grade. Christopher is an ordinary office worker with not so high salary. Thinking about the future of our 2 children, I felt a bit anxious. Before married, I worked as a bank clerk, but I quit my job to follow the belief of my mother-in-law, Sarah, that a wife should stay at home after marriage. Thus, I wasn't allowed to take up a part-time job. Instead, I started a side business from home, which turned out to be more successful than I expected, now earning more than Christopher. But this fact is unknown to Christopher and Sarah. The only person who knows is my daughter, Betty, who gave me the idea when I was pondering what side business to do. Betty is very close to me and shares everything with me. It might be strange for a parent to say this, but she has a kind personality and is bright, well regarded by our neighbors. On the other hand, my son Stephen is taciturn, and it's hard to understand what he's thinking. He's not rebellious, so I just chalk it up to his age. The problem for me is my husband Christopher. Here, we got married through a mutual acquaintance, but it was more of Christopher taking a liking to me and pursuing me. Initially, I wasn't seeing anyone, nor had someone in mind. Since Christopher was earnest and serious, I accepted his proposal. However, once our 2 children were born, Christopher's attitude changed drastically. Childcare and housework are the wife's job. He used to help, albeit reluctantly, with housework and childcare, but stopped altogether after Sarah said yes. Christopher is someone who blindly believes in his mother, taking her word as absolute. And Sarah's words also showed she's a mother who can't let go of her only son. I realized this soon after getting married. The idea of paying rent for a property didn't sit well with Sarah, who questioned why pay for something that's not yours. Hence, Christopher had decided to live in a detached house upon marriage and had saved up for it. As a bank clerk, I had my savings too, and we combined our funds to build the house in cash. However, even though it was our house, Sarah interfered with everything from the kitchen design to the layout. Advice would have been acceptable, but for Christopher, Sarah's word was law. Eventually, the house turned out to be far from what I had envisioned. Still, I thought at least we're not living together. That's something to be grateful for. That was how naively I thought back then. Sarah continued to meddle in our marriage, trying to instill her version of what a wife should be into me. Well, Jennifer, what's this way of folding clothes? I've always done it this way. Well, where exactly did you clean in this manner, showing displeasure at everything I do? I really should have chosen Christopher's wife for him. She soon started saying things like, whenever I talk to Christopher about it, "Isn't Mom a wonderful woman, Jennifer? You should learn from Mom and become a wife worthy of me." It would turn into a brag about his mother, but I thought things would change once we had children. I harbored this naive thought again when I was pregnant with Stephen. After the stable period, you need to develop a strong pelvis for childbirth. She would come from her home every day, making me carry heavy things even on days when I was suffering from severe morning sickness. Saying this just shows how lazy you've become, and forcing me to do household chores, not allowing me to rest. Once Stephen was safely born, I'll praise you for giving birth to a boy. She was pleased about that, at least. Seeing Sarah's behavior, Christopher was cooperative with childcare at that time. And with our second child, Betty, Sarah's attitude remained terrible. I went through the days of morning sickness without proper rest until I gave birth. I really wanted to go back to my parents' home with Stephen for the birth. But who's going to take care of Christopher if not his wife? She yelled, and my wish didn't come true. Moreover, when she found out the second child was a girl will just grow up, get married, and leave. Maybe Jennifer really isn't suited to be Christopher's wife. How can you say that? This child is also a precious life we've been blessed with. Well, only your back talk is impressive. Listen, childcare and housework are the wife's duties. It's obvious. But taking care of Christopher comes first. You can't even think about slacking off, Sarah. I'm not thinking about slacking off, but childcare is difficult by myself. I need Christopher's help too. Making Christopher help? Christopher is working hard for your family, isn't he? By asking such a thing, Jennifer, you're a devil. That was what she would say. Exhausted, not by childcare, but by Sarah's unreasonable behavior, I decided to talk to Christopher. Is that so? Mom said such things. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I didn't notice Christopher. You understand, right? All right. In that case, I won't do any child care or housework from tomorrow. Make sure to take good care of me, too. At Christopher's words, I was momentarily pleased that my husband seemed to understand, only to feel angry at myself for that thought. I was devastated by my husband's defiant attitude, to the point of not finding words to respond. True to his word, Christopher stopped doing not just child care, but even his own personal care. As the children grew, he became more neglectful of the family. Even though he worked in a department with no overtime, he lied about working late, thinking I didn't know, and started coming home later. When asked about meals, he would say he ate at his parents', and this continued for days. All these were things Christopher did willingly following Sarah's words. Yet Sarah lamented, "It's your fault for not being able to create a home he wants to return to." Following that, Sarah's attitude worsened, and so did my husband's. From then on, Sarah's behavior became even worse. At the same time, Yitsun's behavior also worsened. "What's this meal? I thought I'd eat at home for a change and come back early, only to be served this disgusting food. This is why Mom hates you." Christopher would say such things in front of the children without hesitation. The only reason he sometimes came home was because Sarah was away on a trip. I knew the reason, but held back my words because of the children. Maybe Dad just doesn't understand the taste of Mom's cooking. My daughter Betty spoke up for me. What did you say to your father? It's because of how you're raised that you turn out like this. Don't speak badly of Mom, Stephen. Say something. Thank you for the meal, Stephen. Maybe Stephen is the smarter one, Betty. Thank you. I'm okay. I'm sorry for making you feel uncomfortable, Mom. Looks like I'm the one making everyone miserable here, doesn't it? All of you. The family mealtimes turn awkward just like that. Furthermore, Christopher, who originally had a strange sense of money, doesn't even know how much he earns a month. On top of that, he's high in pride, thinking he's a capable man. From who knows where, he believes he's valued at his company and thinks that he's covering all our living expenses with his earnings and even saving a significant amount. In reality, the income is barely enough for the four of us, including the expenses for our 2 children. If I hadn't been earning from my side job, we would have had to sell this large house to survive. Yet, Christopher seems to be spending his salary limitlessly. One day, as I was troubled by doubts about our life with Christopher, Betty ran to me as soon as she got back from school. Mom, oh, welcome back, Betty. What's wrong? You look so upset. Dad said he was going on a business trip for 3 days, right? Yes, he did. He left, saying that this morning. What about it? Betty looked uneasy answering my question. I knew Christopher's company doesn't have overtime, nor does his department have overnight business trips. I thought he must be staying at his parents' house. I was about to tell Betty that, but the words that came out of Betty's mouth were unbelievable. Mom, please calm down and listen. Emily saw Dad walking with his suitcase a while ago. Emily, as Betty mentions, is her best friend. A girl who has come to our house many times and knows Christopher well. Emily saw him. That's strange since he left in the morning. It's not just that. She saw him walking arm in arm with a woman who appeared older than Dad, cheating. Then I somehow didn't find it entirely unbelievable, so I wasn't as shocked at that moment. That woman might be Grandma. What? What did you just say? I was about to continue, but caught my breath. I shouldn't let my daughter speak anymore, driven by that feeling. That's when Stephen came back. I'm home. Dad is... Betty, thank you. It's okay. I'll ask Dad when he comes back. Sorry for making you worry, Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't want to upset you. Betty, about to cry, hugged me tightly, and I felt so dear. I'm going to my part-time job. Even in such an atmosphere, Stephen's words were at his own pace. I knew something had to change. That thought spurred me on. Then, finally, that time came one holiday when I returned from shopping. Christopher, who had been watching TV in the living room, sensed my presence, turned around and stood up. Then he said, laughing, "My parents are coming over, so you should go back to your parents' house." I was taken aback by the sudden demand to leave. Wait a minute. Why are you suddenly bringing this up? I might have ignored it if it were just his usual complaints, but being told to leave without any explanation was not something I could accept, especially since we both paid half for this house without any discussion of inviting his parents. I can't understand without a proper explanation if you're asking me to leave, glancing at me with a side eye as if I were a nuisance. He opened his mouth. Mom wanted to live here. That makes you a bother. Mom hates you, that's why. Here we go again, Mom. Even when trying to discuss something important, he brings up his mother. I was fed up. Something inside me felt like it was collapsing. Fine, but don't regret this. I'm paying $160 a month for living expenses. I turned my back to my husband with a meaningful smile. Regret? Don't worry, I won't. Oh, and take the kids with you. Hearing Christopher's voice behind me, anger welled up and I clenched my fist. Leaving the living room, I went to Betty's room and called out to Stephen. I want us to leave here and go stay with the other grandma in the next room. Of course, divorce was the underlying assumption, but without telling the kids that. Would you mind keeping me company for a bit of a break? I simply asked. I planned to explain everything later and let them choose whom they wanted to stay with. Betty seemed to understand how I was feeling, nodded silently, and began packing essentials. Stephen, without saying anything, looked straight at me, gave a small nod, and went back to his room. And so we, the parent and children, decided to leave the house. I contacted the garbage collection service and had all the furniture and appliances disposed of. Luckily, I had informed my parents that this might happen a while ago, so they were ready to take us in immediately. My parents' home was in a distant place, and both my father and mother were very happy to see their grandchildren after a long time. Moreover, it was the beginning of the summer vacation for both children, so we had time to think about the future and discuss it. However, it might be unfortunate for the children, but they might have to transfer schools. That was the only thing that made me feel guilty for dragging them into this situation, due to parental circumstances. The next day, after returning to my parents' house, Betty made a proposal. "Mom, no matter what happens, I'm on your side, okay?" "Betty, thank you. I'll do my best," I replied. Then Stephen came in, sat down in front of me, and handed over an envelope. "What's this?" Inside were several photographs. Seeing them, I involuntarily widened my eyes and covered my mouth with my hand. I thought they might serve as evidence. "I'm on your side too, Mom. That guy never did anything father-like. I never thought of him as a father." Stephen, I was moved by Stephen's words and found myself at a loss for words seeing me like that. Stephen continued, "I've been thinking. I want to go to a university with a law school to help you, Mom. A friend's brother is a lawyer, and he's let me do some part-time work as a phone operator and errand boy," he said. "He could help you." I was deeply moved to realize how much my usually quiet son had thought about this. I thought they were still children, but both had grown up to be such good kids. I decided to consult with the lawyer's office, where Stephen's friend's brother worked. First, I needed to sort out the situation around my husband, Christopher. He had told me to leave because he was inviting his parents over without consulting me. He mentioned his parents, but I knew that my father-in-law was working away from home and hardly ever at the house. Then my thoughts drifted to something I didn't want to consider. Betty's friend had seen Christopher and a woman, presumably Sarah, walking arm in arm. He had left the house early in the morning, claiming he was on a business trip, but I knew Christopher's department didn't have overnight business trips. The clincher was the photos in the envelope Stephen had brought. It seemed a lawyer had investigated, and the photos captured Christopher and Sarah entering a dubious hotel. In fact, Sarah was not Christopher's real mother. I had heard this from Christopher a long time ago. His real mother had died when he was in middle school, and he had spoken happily about how Sarah, not related by blood, had loved him. The thought of Christopher and Sarah together was disturbing, but at this point, I no longer cared what they did. However, I couldn't let this betrayal go unpunished. I didn't want money, but they had also betrayed the children. I decided to at least seek compensation as a form of reparation. With these thoughts, I proceeded to prepare with the lawyer. It was about 2 weeks since I had left Christopher. My mobile phone rang annoyingly loud. It was Christopher, the very person about to face retribution. "Hello? What the hell is going on?" Christopher's voice screamed into my ear. I responded with complete calm. "It's been a while. How about starting with a greeting? What do you mean by what's going on? Don't play dumb. You took money from my bank account. Give it back. That's impossible. It couldn't be. After all, Christopher's bank account only had his monthly salary deposit into it, with no savings to speak of. No one else could mess with my money. I'm not sure how much, but I'll forgive you if you return it now. Hurry up and transfer the full amount. His uncertainty about how much was in his own savings somehow impressed me in a strange way. Look, your debit card has always been with you. How am I supposed to withdraw from it? Well, there's always a way. Just hurry up and transfer the money. It dawned on me anew how ignorant this person is. Are you serious? It's not that easy to just withdraw money, and I haven't even looked at your bank account long before I left. What then? How have you been living up until now? My earnings allowed you to be a housewife. I'm speechless. Perhaps this is exactly what they mean. Did you ever give me a salary? What did you say? Sorry, but your meager earnings were not enough for a family of 4 to live on. I was struggling not to laugh. Then, how did you... Let me clarify. I was freelancing. It's odd to say freelancing as a housewife, but I was earning a bit on the side at home without you knowing. I was successful, earning more than you. I was the one paying the $160 monthly living expenses. So, I told you, didn't I? I don't regret it. I could hear Christopher gasping at that. Wait, that's not all. What about the furniture and appliances in the house? Now you ask after 2 weeks. I'm astounded. Turns out, after we left and he didn't return from a fake business trip, staying at his parents' house instead, Sarah had been preparing to move into our house by staying over. When he finally did move, he found all the household items gone, and when he went to withdraw money, not a cent was left, prompting him to contact me in a panic. If I bought the appliances, I had them collected as trash. You wouldn't want to live with Sarah with items who Sarah hates, had bought in the room, would you? I said meaningfully. And to think, the only things left in the house were the bag and clothes you brought from your parents' house. That just shows you've done nothing for us. Rather, you betrayed us and our children in an unfathomable way. Betrayed? What are you talking about? His panic was evident. As if you don't know. Your affair with Sarah. His panic was evident. No, I will punish you. A lawyer will be visiting you, so don't run away, I declared. Christopher flailed, claiming there was no evidence. But I informed him that everything was in order, and he fell silent. There was more to Christopher's story. According to the lawyer, he thought by kicking us out, he could move Sarah and his father-in-law's stuff in, living effectively with just the two of them, selling the old family home and enjoying trips with Sarah with that money. Christopher, who never had a sense of money, even secretly got a credit card and spoiled Sarah with brand bags. I never received such gifts during our marriage, and so Christopher ended up in debt. The divorce, prompted by the discovery of his affair with his biological mother, went smoothly. Of course, his father-in-law found out, leading to a major conflict. Meanwhile, he called me with a pathetic voice. Please, I was wrong. Mom said she'll take you back and support you. Such a call made no sense at all. When he persistently tried to contact me, despite my request to go through a lawyer, I threatened to call the police and he fell silent. In the end, Christopher was buried in debt from credit cards, compensation claims I made, compensation from his father-in-law, and alimony claims Sarah made after the divorce. The company's finances continued to swell, and they ended up with huge debts. Somehow, the news of his affair with his biological mother and his family leaving him spread to his company, leading to his dismissal. Now, Christopher is juggling part-time jobs in construction, working tirelessly. Eventually, Sarah disappeared after rumors of her affair with her biological son spread among her friends and acquaintances. Yes, indeed, it was all a result of his own doing. I'm grateful we divorced before being burdened with debt. Thanks to Stephen's quick thinking. As for us, my successful side business allowed us to rebuild our home into a duplex, living a peaceful life with my parents on the first floor and myself, Stephen, who's studying law, and Betty, who's pursuing a career in childcare on the second floor. After separating from Christopher, Stephen began to smile more and became more communicative with me. My daughter Betty tells me, "You can remarry if you want, but I've had enough of men." I choose to see this as a valuable social lesson. Having my children and parents who care and cherish me is enough. As long as I have Stephen and Betty, who care about me as much as my parents do, that's fine. Watching my children grow is my